Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Ashes podcast on late on day two, about 15 minutes or so left on day two. England have a lead of 56 runs, 373 for 4 in less than 70 overs. It's been yet another breathless day of this series. I've got Michael Atherton and Kumar Sangakkara alongside me. Another extraordinary day, gentlemen. Only one place to start, that's with Zach Crawley. Where have you stood around Zach Crawley in his career? It's pretty much baked in he was going to play in this series, but he's played pretty well, and today was the icing on the cake.
Oh, it was a memorable innings today, a great Ashes 100 by any estimation. I mean, the second fastest on this famous old ground, drawing comparisons with the great Beefy, who scored an 86 ball 100, I think it was, back in 1981, which I remember well as a boy, sitting in. We're coming back from a camping holiday in France and listening to that on the radio, and there'll be many young men of that age now watching Crawley being inspired in the same way, because it was a brilliant knock. And I suppose it rather sums up what England have been wanting from Crawley and why they've been prepared to go through the bad times, of which there have been a few, many, all the low scores that they've seen, because they know what the upside is and what the potential is. Excuse me, and we saw all that today when he just tore Australia apart.
I must admit, I haven't heard, last year and through the course of the series against New Zealand and South Africa, that he really was struggling, and it looked as though the kindest thing to do would be to remove him from the front line. But ever since England's tour of Pakistan, he scored the fastest ever 100 by an England opener there. The voices have quietened down about his position in the side, really. In fact, people are pretty much prepared to go, OK, he's in the team, let's leave him be. And the upshot of that has been that over the course of the series, both he and Ben Duckett have got England off to a lot of really good, consistent starts. Have you seen anything change in Zach Crawley's setup or in his outlook that has translated into the increased success of this series?
I think watching him at Lord's, I thought that he must have done some work with Trescothick on that bat swing of his, coming from wide outside off stump back into him and getting that arc back into the offside, without which he was getting into trouble, getting caught in the slips and nicking off. In this match, when Nasser Hussain did his analysis on his bat swing, it was still very much straight down, straight lines, more towards the onside, half-closed bat face. But what's helped him is that the pitch has been very true. There's not been as much movement. Now, the way that he plays, and we can analyze technique till the cows come home, but at the end of the day, it's effectiveness that really matters. And what he does have is high skill. And what Brendan McCullum and Stokes and Rob Key have done is they've identified players they believe that have high skill, the right personality, and potential to do what Zach did today, but of course more consistently as time goes by. And the other thing, when you use the word consistent, is that they've stuck with that squad, with that belief, with those players, trusted them, backed them, and kind of insulated them as much as possible from the noise and the pressure around them. And today Zach Crawley proved that he has it in him to score big runs, score them quickly, put time back into a test match, and in crucial stages under heavy pressure, not just himself but the whole side, that he can stand up and convert.
I think one of the big differences is the way Australia have set their field to him at the start, actually, with boundary fielders back on both sides. It's almost taken the pressure off him to hit boundaries, because he knows the boundaries are harder to come by. He's picking up singles and therefore looks slightly more composed and serene at the start of an innings. The acceleration has come later. It came after lunch today. His second 50, I think, was 26 or 7 balls. Yeah. But actually at the start, and this is throughout the series, I think he's looked more solid than we've seen him. And I think that's partly as a consequence of some of those deep set fields that have been put to him.
That backing that Kumar speaks of for the individual has also manifested itself in England's backing for their method of play. Again, they've taken 10 wickets. They wrapped up Australia's innings quickly this morning. And then they've come out and looked to be hyper-aggressive. Now, that got them into trouble in the first 2 test matches, leading them to being 2-0 down. But right now, it seems to be working absolutely perfectly. Can you think of another occasion whereby teams led by individuals who perhaps don't believe what they're saying to the extent that these two do, that they might have volte-faced turned round after going 2-0 down and perhaps tried to change things.
But I think they have, you see. I think they have dialed down after Lords. I think they went so aggressive there, and they perhaps realised themselves that they went too far. And there was a definite change, for example, in Harry Brook at Headingley. And although they played super aggressively here, not in the way that Brook played at Lords, where he's backing away and slogging, basically. So I think actually they have slightly dialed it down since that game.
Agree?
I agree. I think they're on a journey, and this what Athers speaks about is absolutely true, because even when you listen to Vokes, and we spoke to him after the Headingley game, spoke to him here, he talks about playing what's in front of you, being smart, making the right decisions, irrespective of the attitude and the belief that England have in that philosophy. And that's where it becomes even better, when you can match up cricketing now's experience, smart decision making, and the ability to really exploit what this belief and this consistency and this backing is all about. I know that Rob Key is a huge fan of Simon Sinek and game theory and the infinite game and the finite game, and it's very much like how they've set themselves. The infinite game, or the long-term vision, is about entertainment in Test cricket, re-injecting that vigor, vibrancy, and enjoyment that people had playing and watching the game, especially when you're talking about attracting children to the game.
And if you stick with that, the results look after themselves.
And then you stick with it, and you don't change that, irrespective of short-term gains or losses.
You're not going to get it right all the time.
Correct.
There's going to be the odd occasion when you get it a little bit wrong, and particularly given that some of them are very young players, like Harry Brook, just finding their way in the game and the international game. So you have to cut people a bit of slack to get it wrong occasionally.
And two old stages.
Sorry, just about the Ashes as well, and that's what we've been talking about, how vital the Ashes is in this whole baseball context and the new. But I think for them the vision is still the same. You keep going irrespective of what happens in the Ashes. This will be another stepping stone towards learning and getting better.
Two older players then. We don't have a massive amount of time left, but first of all, Moeen Ali at number 3. We were all pretty much in agreement that it was the best of a bad job, and that succeed or not, it was the right way to line England up, and it succeeded, didn't it? Got England off to a great start.
And then another example to prove kind of in Athers' point about getting smarter. The way he batted, I actually thought he might go in and just have at it and slash at a few and get some edges. He left the short ball well alone. He ducked it. He was very, very circumspect. He scored at, just over maybe 60% strike rate or something like that, which is quite low in terms of how England go about it, especially with Moeen Ali. But he really set the stage. He absorbed the pressure, really kind of built a partnership and buckled down to batting like an actual number 3. And he's got the technique to do it, and it really worked.
Joe Root then comes in at 4, and the partnership was breathtaking between himself and Zach Crawley. Joe is enjoying himself like never before as a cricketer. There were times when, under his captaincy, when he was captain, when he looked like a man carrying the weight. He looked a bit like you when you were captain at the end of end of your term.
However, though, it never affected his batting.
True that.
Really,
very true.
I absolutely agree with you. There are times in the field where he looked burdened, but never when he got out to the middle. His batting held up even in the darkest times of his captaincy. But obviously, he's enjoying himself thoroughly. I mean, he came to the crease just as Crawley started to get into full sail, and Australia hit him with a short ball ploy immediately, which kind of got him going because he got a few hooks away, and then he played 2 or 3 gorgeous reverse scoops and was looking beautiful until he got that grubber.
Yeah, a grubber that leads me nicely onto the position in the game, really. England now 63 runs ahead. We're expecting terrible weather on Saturday, but the forecast keeps changing for the better for Friday and Sunday. How are you playing this game between the two of you? What's your ploy? England are only 4 down. They've got a lead. The game moves fastest when they are batting. What are you doing?
Well, first of all, I'm getting the best possible forecast, up-to-date forecast tomorrow morning.
Yes.
These things change so quickly. Yeah. Come to the ground tomorrow, try and find out what the most accurate forecast is. It seems clear that we're probably going to lose most of Saturday, but we might get most of Friday and Sunday, in which case you're playing as they're playing now, which is putting their foot down, trying to build that lead till maybe lunchtime tomorrow, and then you've got to get Australia in because you need those 10 wickets, and you're not worried so much about batting last and chasing because they don't have a specialist spinner and it looks a very good pitch.
You want to be in charge. If you do lose time in the game, from my point of view, I was thinking that I'd want to be in charge of the match, i.e. I'd want us to be the ones in the field rather than having to perhaps watch the opposition slow the game down. I mean, the over rates today have been poor. You can understand why from Australia's point of view because the laws of the game basically allow you to do it if you want to. So what are you doing? If everything went perfectly, how many runs would you want before you pulled out or you were happy getting Australia back in?
Well, there's 64 ahead. There might be 70, 75, who knows, in the next few minutes. But if they bat and this partnership grows, another 150 to 160 in a session is not impossible. They're 200 or just about a little bit more in front. They might want to have a dab after lunch, but I think once you're close to that 200 mark, then you've got to make a dish and you get Australia in. But it all depends on the weather. If Saturday gets rained out, if tomorrow is weather marred, and Sunday becomes a question, you have to, by lunch, just after lunch, Australia goes back in. Pull
them out, yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, we've seen, you mentioned Joe Root's dismissal with the ball shooting along the ground. I mean, I suppose the more England bat and they can run up and down on the pitch and the Australian bowlers can pound away, the more chance you might have one or two more balls playing tricks as well. My point is that
one ball all day.
Yeah,
I've
counted 3.
Okay, but it's looked a beautiful pitch to bat on. And it's a long time since I played here, obviously. But my experience suggests that it's never going to become a minefield here. Both first-class games have been drawn here. You have to work hard to win first-class matches at Old Trafford. So don't expect the pitch to suddenly start going up and down and helping you out.
The crowd will certainly play a part. I mean, what we've seen ever since Lord's, and again, you can have your own opinion about the rights and the wrongs of what have happened at Lord's. But one thing that it's done, it's given the English crowds even more reason to kind of get on the backs of Australia for everything they do, every half appeal,
just feel the kind of surge of momentum. We talked about 81 a little bit, and you made the comparison, the 3 games that England won there, and once you start to get on a roll and the crowd gets behind you, if this match went England's way, going to the Oval, it would be kind of very hard to feel as though that momentum could be stopped.
Yeah. If this goes England's way, I think England's going to take the Ashes 3-2.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
It's a long way ahead. We're getting ahead of it.
We are getting ahead. That's what people do. Imagine we were in the Dog and Duck with a couple of pints. That's exactly what
where we will be in about half an hour's time.
Don't tell anyone. Everyone will want to come. Australia's mentality, and again, we've spoken about this before, but Marnus Labuschagne is now on bowling leg spin. Travis Head bowled a few overs of spin, and England decided that they were just going to tonk the part-time spinners. They've picked a team which is kind of, long in batting, 5 seam bowlers, even though they would say, they would never admit to the fact, but they kind of knew that a draw was going to be enough here and expecting the weather. But it's kind of backfired on them as well, hasn't it? All of the momentum seems to be Australia going onto the back foot and England pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, it just showed in the way the two sides have played. Yesterday, Australia, so many batters getting starts, no one really buckling down to take it further and ensuring that they were ahead and bossing the game, and they had so many opportunities. And then with the ball, it's been a long time since I've seen the Australians so perplexed on the field, so confused, not knowing what to do, not knowing what fields to set, and then setting fields and bowling just completely away from plans. So it's really affected them. And this stays because you have only 3 days. If this game finishes in England, so you have only 3 days before the next test. So the memories will stay, the scars will stay. And when England's ahead, what they've done better than Australia, they've recognized when they're ahead, and they've played that way, and they've accelerated and taken the game away.
That injury to Nathan Lyons looking very much like the one to Glenn McGrath in 05, as significant as that.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And Mitchell Starc has also has had to leave the field today. He dived on a ball to his left, went down awkwardly on his bowling arm, and has got a real problem with the shoulder. So he might be in trouble for a potential second innings. They may or may not be one in this Test match, and of course for the quick turnaround between now at the Oval. So lots of problems for Australia, lots of smiles on the faces of England players up on the balcony there as we get down into the very last knockings of day 2. In fact, the crowd are just getting to their feet now at Old Trafford. They have been royally entertained once again. Every day we turn up in this Ashes series, not quite knowing what to expect, except that there is going to be entertainment and excitement, and we've had no shortage of that today. Zach Crawley has been the hero. England are 67 runs to the good and only 4 wickets down. England will be looking to press on tomorrow and trying to force a win and force a decider at the Oval. That's all coming up. But this has been the Ashes podcast.